Hello South Shore, welcome back to Math with Naz and Lulu. Today in math we're going to be plotting fractions on a number line. We'll be working on Module 5, Lesson 14. What you're going to need to do this lesson along with me is your journal that you usually do your math work in and a pencil. Should you not have that, any piece of paper or pen would be fine. You'll also need a couple pieces of loose paper. I'm going to be using plain white paper, but you could use paper straight from your journal. That would be fine, lined paper. So grab all of those things and come on back to get started on some math for today. Okay, third graders, in order to do today's work, you're going to need some fraction strips. I grabbed a piece of plain white paper to remind you of how you can fold fraction strips even if you don't have scissors. Just remember that you've got to make the creases very tight. So go ahead and fold your paper like a hamburger. Take your nail or your finger and smush, smush, smush down the crease. Unfold it, fold it the other way, and go ahead and smush, smush, smush down the crease using your finger or your nail. If you don't have a nail and you're just using your finger, do it several times. And then slow and steady, pull it apart on the crease. And you'll get a nice, even cut. And then take both halves and fold them again like hamburgers. Crease it down nice and smushy tight. Then unfold it and open it up and fold it the other way and smush it down until you have 4 pieces for 4 different fraction strips. Just like that. So I've gone ahead and already cut my fraction strips, and to help you see them better on the camera, I've used some colors like this. So after you have 4 fraction strips, go ahead and pull out a piece of paper. We're going to do our work on that today. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my piece of paper and I'm going to lay it on top of my white paper, and I'm going to use it just like a ruler. I'm going to take my pencil, I have a marker just so you can see it better, and draw a line, but make this line a little bit longer than the actual fraction strip, just like that. And then go ahead and make that an open number line. Remember, these arrows on the side mean it's an open number line. Okay, third graders, now that you have your number line, go ahead and place your fraction strip on top of the number line, just like that. Now use the very edge of the number line to draw a line to plot 0. And on the other side, use the very edge of the other edge of the number line to plot 1. Now, you have a number line that starts at 0 and ends at 1. Well, guess what, third graders? Between 0 and 1 is not a bunch of blank space. That's where all your fractions live, at least your fractions that are smaller than 1. And fractions that are smaller than 1 will have a smaller number on top than they do on the bottom. Okay, so now we're going to work on this fraction strip. Go ahead and take it like a hamburger, a veggie burger in my case, and fold it in half. Now, take your marker or your pencil, pen, whatever you're writing with, and draw a line all the way down. Think about the fraction strip. How many parts do I have? What's the unit fraction that describes each of these parts? Think it. Say it out loud. 1/2. So I'm going to go ahead and write 1/2 in here. Now, third graders, between this edge and this edge is 1 whole. And when I fold it, I get a half. So if I put this on my number line and I line it up with the 0 and 1, where this half line is, that's where 1/2 would be on the number line. So I'm going to go ahead and write it in. Now, third graders, there are other fractions on this number line, other half fractions. So let's learn a new word, equivalent. I say it, you say it. equivalent. Equivalent means that one number is equal to another number. So when we are partitioning a number line into halves, the 0 is equivalent to 0 halves. So I know from 0 to this first plot that I have, 1/2, is 1/2. I also know that from 1/2 to 1 is 1/2 also. The space it takes up is 1/2 the number line. So 0 halves, 1/2. 1 is equivalent to 2 halves. On your paper, you should be following along with me. Go ahead and write down where all of these fractions belong. Pause the video until you get all done with that, and then come on back. Okay, third graders, so now I have a number line that represents halves. I can also do a number bond to show what's happening on the number line. When I'm drawing my number bond, my whole that I'm working with is 1. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the part of the number line where we put the whole, and inside I'm going to put a 1. Now, I know that there are 2 parts to this number line. The part that is between 0 and 1/2, and the part that's between 1/2 and 2 halves. So I show that on a number line by decomposing or breaking up 1 into 1/2 and 1/2. Now don't get confused because I wrote the number bond like this. I could just have as easily drawn it like this or any old way I wanted. The important thing to remember about a number bond is that in the circle that the 2 lines, I call them legs, are attached to is where the whole lives. So now I have a number line and a number bond that represent halves. I'm going to go ahead and set this aside. If you are working in your journal, go ahead and turn the page. If you're not working in your journal, you can go ahead and erase your board if you're working on your whiteboard. I'm just going to turn this over so I don't waste paper. Now, I have my fraction strip that's a half. I'm going to do another fraction strip. So I'm going to draw another number line. I'm going to use, again, I'm going to use this as my, this fraction strip as my kind of ruler. So I make it, kind of straight, although my cutting wasn't terribly straight. And I'm going to, once again, make my number line open using the arrows to show that it goes on, and I'm going to make it a little bit longer than my fraction strip. Go ahead and do that. Now let's go ahead and plot where 0 is. Remember, 0 would be here where the fraction strip begins, and 1 would be here where the fraction strip ends. Remember, between 0 and 1 is 1 whole, and in this case it's 1 whole fraction strip. So we're going to partition this fraction strip, but not in halves. We're going to partition it in thirds. And instead of trying to fold it into thirds, I'm just going to estimate. Remember, an estimate is just a good mathematical guess. So I'm going to say 1/2 is about, one part is about there, and the other part is about there. And I'm going to go ahead and label these with the unit fraction. So what would, if I have 3 equal parts, what would each equal part be? Think it, say it. Unit fraction is, that's right, 1/3. So I'm going to go ahead and write 1/3 to represent each unit fraction. Now I'm going to line it up with my 0 and 1 and use it to help me plot thirds on the number line. So where the first line I drew to represent the first part is, That's 1/3. Where the second line is, that's 2/3. Now let's think about our equivalent fractions. I know where 1/3 is because between 0 and this line is 1/3 of my number line. And then between 1/3 and the next line is another third of my number line, so that's 2/3. 0 is equivalent to what fraction? Think it and say it out loud, 0/3. So I have 0/3, 1/3, 2/3. 1 is equivalent to what fraction? Think it in your head and say it out loud, 3/3. Go ahead and follow along until your number line looks like mine. Pause the video if you need to. Okay, third graders, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna represent this number line with a number bond. Remember, the hole goes into the circle that has the legs coming off of it. So I've partitioned this into thirds, 3 equal parts. I'm going to show 3 equal parts in my number bond. Go ahead and follow along. When you've gotten your number bond all drawn, tell me what goes inside the circles. What represents one of each part? And think about if you're decomposing or breaking up 1 into 3 equal parts, what goes inside your circle? Pause the video, fill it in. Each line represents 1/3, because 1/3 and 1/3 and another 1/3 equals 3/3. 3/3 is equivalent to 1. All right, third graders, we're going to try that again. Go ahead and turn the page. Grab your next fraction strip. With your fraction strip, draw a number line that's a little bit longer than the fraction strip. Make sure you show it's open. That means we know it goes on and on. Find your 0. Find your 1. Now, go ahead and partition your fraction strip into fourths this time. You do it on your own. Pause the video. When this is partitioned into fourths and you have the unit fraction filled in, unpause the video and check it to my work. I'm going to go ahead and fold this fraction strip. Halves and fourths are easy for me to fold, which helps me estimate. And now I'm going to just darken the creases. And I have now, with my 3 lines, partitioned my fraction strip into fourths. If your number line does not look like mine, if you made a mistake, no big deal. Pause the video and fix it. Now, what I want you to do is take your fraction strip and hold it up to the number line that you drew. Use the number line to then fill in the fractions. What would 0 be equivalent to? Where would 1/4 be? Where would 2/4 be? And so on. Don't forget to say what 1 would be equivalent to. Pause the video until you've filled out your number line with all the fourths that you can find between 0 and 1. Okay, third graders, if you haven't finished your number line, keep the video paused, but I'm going to move on. So I am going to draw a line for a line on the number line that corresponds or matches up with each of the lines on my fraction strip. I know 0 is equivalent to 0/4 because I've had no fourths yet, but between 0 and this first line is 1/4. So I'm going to draw 1/4 on my number line. Between 1/4 and the next line is another 1/4. 1/4 plus 1/4 is 2/4. Did you get that right? The next one is what? What did you do? 3/4. Now, what is 1 equivalent to? That's right, 4/4. I want to talk about the number 1. The number 1 is equivalent to a fraction that has the same amount on the top as it does on the bottom. Here's what I mean by that. That's 1/4 and 1/4 and 1/4 and another 1/4. So these 4 parts, when added together, the number on the bottom is the total number of parts, that's 4. And if I add the number on top, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 4. In other words, I have 4 1/4. Pause the video and show that on the number bond. How many legs would I have? Go. Okay, welcome back, 3rd grade. I'm going to go ahead and draw my number bond to look like this. And then I'm going to represent each of the 1/4 inside the number bond. So now I have a number line and a number line and a number bond that represents all of the fourths that I can find between 0 and 1. 3rd graders, you have another fraction strip that you made. On your own, go ahead and turn this fraction strip into fifths. You'll have 5 of them. When you're done making a fraction strip that's in fifths, draw it on a piece of paper and a number line, exactly like we did for the fourths. Okay, 3rd graders, let's talk a little bit about the problem set today. I went ahead and put the problem set right in Schoology in case you wanted to print it out, but this problem set will be particularly easy to put in your journal. So I have my journal, and I'm going to do the first most important thing. What is it? Write the lesson. It's lesson 14, and you're going to do the whole problem set today. Don't worry, it won't be too much work. I'll show you why in a minute. And then go ahead and write today's date, which is 6-3-20. Then write a number 1. We'll do the first one together. So, number 1 is asking you, draw a number bond for each fractional unit, partition the fraction strip to show the unit fraction on the number bond, use the fraction strip to help you label the fractions on the number line, be sure to label the fractions at 0 and 1. So remember, those are those equivalent fractions, the fractions that are equivalent to the whole numbers. So they've done the first number bond for us. They've put a 1 in the main part, and then on the legs they've put 1/2. That means we're partitioning the number line into halves. So then I'm going to draw a number rectangle. Sorry, 3rd graders, I'm forgetting all my words today. And then right underneath the rectangle, I'm going to draw a number line. And I'm going to use the end of the beginning of the rectangle to put 1, and I'm going to use the end of the rectangle. I'm going to use the beginning of the rectangle to put 0, and then I'm going to use the end of the rectangle to put 1. Partition it in half. Write the fraction unit in the unit fraction in each part. Then find the half, because remember we're partitioning in halves. Half would be right where this line is, 1/2. Now don't forget, it says to turn the 0 and the 1 into fractions too. This would be 0/2, and 1 would be 1/2, 2/2. So 1 is 2/2. Does this look familiar? It's just what we did in the video. So you're going to do that for thirds, fourths, and fifths. You're going to set it up just like this. You're going to draw the fractional unit the number bond. Then you're going to do a rectangle and a number line and plot all of the fractions. Don't forget to do the 0 and the 1. When you're all done with that, well, you'll move on to the last two problems, and they're both word problems. So let's read them together. Problem 2. Trevor needs to let his puppy outside every quarter or 1/4 hour to potty train him. Draw and label a number line from 0 hours to 1 hour. Show every 1/4 hour. Include 0/4 and 4/4 hour. Label 0 hours and 1 hour too. So you're going to do a number line and you're gonna partition it just like we did in the video to show all of the fourths. That's when Trevor's potty training his dog. Then move on to 3. A ribbon is 1 meter long. Mrs. Lee wants to sew a bead every 1/5 meter. The first bead is at 1/5 meter. The last bead is at 1 meter. Draw and label a number line from 0 meters to 1 meter to show where Mrs. Lee will sew beads. Label all the fractions including 0/5 and 5/5. Label 0 meters and 1 meter too. So again, for this one, you're partitioning it into fifths to show everywhere where Miss Lee will put a bead on the ribbon. When you're all done with these problems, go ahead and send it in. Congratulations, you've done all of the problem set for lesson 14. Thank you for your hard work, 3rd grade. Take care. We'll talk soon.